2024, I have the privilege of interviewing 52 amazing authors in 52 weeks. And today, we are joined by author Katrina McGhee, whose book resonated with me more than you will ever know. And the title is Taking a Career Break. If you've ever heard me speak before, you've heard me say this line, which is so appropriate for today's interview, is we have to learn to no longer be held hostage by salary and benefits. Hi, Katrina.
Hi, Lisa. Oh, I like that. I'm keeping that. I'm stealing it and I'm keeping it.
You can have it. Listen, your book really packages all it up in a nice bow because I personally, as a person who was an entrepreneur, but also working somewhere else, it was online, right? It was pretty flexible until it wasn't. And it hit me one night. If you want to be an entrepreneur, independent, you've got to allow yourself to stop being held hostage. And when I say I was held hostage, like nobody was keeping me there, I was keeping me there. I got comfortable with the salary, the benefits, my consulting income, all the things, all the trips, right? But mentally, it was ripping me apart. The environment became toxic. And I'm like, at 50 years old, I'm too old for this, right? I'm 50, but I look 30,
You
right? So
do.
I want to continue this youthful look, right? And I could not do that in that toxic environment.
That is
So,
amazing that you recognize that though. It's
oh,
hard. It's hard to take that initiative to get out, but I 1000% agree with you. It's essential to our well-being.
yes,
hmm
yes. So tell us your story because you wrote this book for a reason, and we want our listening, viewing audience to grow with the both of us. And trust me, I'm going to text several folks when this episode airs and say, you must read this book, you must watch this interview because it is time to break free.
Amen. I love that. Okay. My story, I wrote this book. It all started with my own experience. So I've been a coach for 7 years, coaching on career breaks. I've supported and coached 80 plus career breaks. It's incredible, right? But it all started with me and having to face a similar challenge to the one that you described. So I had a great first corporate career. I was an actuary. You talk about the job security, the benefits, the salary. I mean, I was making more than either one of my parents individually was making in my first job at 21, being an actuary in Atlanta, Georgia. And I knew pretty early on that wasn't going to be my forever thing, but it was so good, it was hard to leave. So I was there for 8 years. But how do you escape golden handcuffs? Well, you just trade them in for a different pair of golden handcuffs. So I went to get my MBA at a top 20 business school. And then I decided to go work as a market researcher at General Mills in Minneapolis. And I thought, man, I've changed my career. I'll find more alignment, more ease. Ultimately, though, I had a very real moment, day of reckoning where I had to face the fact that corporate life was not for me. The corporate grind was not something I wanted to be in anymore. And honestly, I was just really burnt out. And so in my early 30s, I had this awareness, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I hired a life coach back in 2011, and through my work with her and really thinking about all the ways I was imprisoning myself with choices that didn't feel like choices, I finally had this epiphany when I felt safe and free enough for my brain to offer it up that I just wanted to travel around the world for a year. I didn't have any money saved up. I had $1,500 in my bank account, a lot of student loan debt, and a great job. But I made a plan. I saved $40,000 in 18 months. I gave my job 8 months' notice. And I left to travel until I ran out of money, which was 20 months. And when I came back, the seed to create this book was planted because I landed 5 job offers in just 5 weeks of searching for a job. So from the day I had my resume up until the day I landed a job, it took 5 weeks. I had 5 offers, dream job, promotions, raises, all the things. And while I didn't really want to go back to corporate at that stage of the game, I had a lot of debt still from my business school degree, over $40,000 worth. And the way that I knew how to pay it off quickly was to go back to corporate, play the game, but do it with intense focus, and I paid off all of my debt in less than 2 years. So I was very excited about that. I could then get certified as a life coach and do my business on the side. And then I left to become full time in my business and start helping people in a bigger way on a bigger scale. But that was the seed that was planted for this book that became how to take your life back, essentially.
Oh, wow, 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 and wow some more. So first of all, I am jealous that you got to travel all those months because I love to take that passport out and that suitcase and go. The virtual world is nice, but it's just something about being um, in a setting with others and networking and collaborating that, virtually is difficult to do. But I bet during that you said 20 months, right?
Yeah, 20 months. That's right.
Right. For the people all the way in the back, 20 months.
Yeah.
But I think something that's really important, you don't quit your job without a plan. You can see the signs all over the walls, right? That it's toxic, that you're not happy. And while you're being the corporate hero, you got to make a plan. You got to execute the plan. You don't have to tell everybody else about your plan because the plan is for you. But the minute you put those wheels in motion, I don't know about you, but for me, when I put those wheels in motion, I started to feel this peace. Like the chains were breaking. They weren't broken yet, but they started to break. But simultaneously, I started feeling very uncomfortable. And I made up in my mind that I was going to be comfortable being uncomfortable because I knew that that's where the magic lies. And so when I did it, it was like, it took you so long to make that change. So what did you do those 20 months? I know you travel, but like,
Yeah.
did you cry? Did you scream? What did you do?
Mm. Yeah. So I had been, oh God, I'm going to be super real in my answer. I've been planning for this break for nearly 2 years. It was a dream come true. It was something I was insanely proud of. And girl, you did it. That's like what kept running through my head as I was inching close to that 40K. But unexpectedly, a week before my break started, my younger brother, who was my favorite person, unexpectedly passed away. And that was the singular most awful moment of my whole life. So now I have this amazing experience that's like a capstone experience of my, to that point, adulthood mixed with the worst moment of my adult life. And so I had to find a way to let both of those realities coexist. And I had to get very clear on what is this break really about? Is it about something different? Is it about the same thing? And what am I willing to do for it? And what am I no longer willing to do for it? And ultimately, I coach my clients with this and I talk about this in the book, but developing a clear purpose statement and knowing what the 4 themes or pillars of your break would be, so how you're going to achieve success, what you want to focus on, was so essential to me regrounding so that I could have a really great life-changing experience in the midst of the worst moment of my adult life. And so there was a crap ton of crying. I remember the first thing I did was a 3-month road trip, and my then boyfriend at the time was so kind. He was like, I'm going to come with you. We're going to make it an adventure. He worked remotely back then. So he was like, I'll just make it work. I would cry all the time. When we were on our long drives and the radio would come on, like any song that reminded me of him, I would cry. It was a lot of crying. I was like, oh my God, will I ever stop crying? But I also had this insane sense of freedom, knowing that no one owned my time, knowing that I could do whatever I wanted. There wasn't like, oh, if I sleep in today, I'm going to pay for it tomorrow. And quite honestly, I sold almost every single thing that I had ever purchased: Pottery Barn furniture, Crate and Barrel stuff, right? Like it was all gone. And the freedom, once it was gone, of no longer having a household to maintain. I didn't have bills to pay. I didn't have to dust. I honestly didn't even have to really like go buy groceries, right? So it was like this insane level of freedom where maintaining a house and feeling like I was still trapped in some shoulds and some routine was just completely gone. And it was jarring but incredibly freeing. And I think it allowed me to be so present in my life and to really focus on what is in this moment, because my head wasn't focused on all of the to-dos that I should be doing, but I'm not going to, all the things I've got to do next, trying to like multitask this massive list in my head at all times. And that was really incredible. I did a lot of travel, and I also spent some time at home with my family and settling into a new place. I relocated during this time as well. And I just really tried to enjoy every stage of the journey and of my life. And when it was time to be peaceful, I was peaceful and still. And when it was time to go be bold and have adventures, I was in Bali getting certified as a yoga instructor, or I was playing with elephants at a sanctuary in Thailand. I was just living my best life and best change day to day. And I just honored whatever was true for me that day.
Wow. Let me tell you, you have set so many people free in the last 5 minutes. You will never know. Some of us are, number one, afraid to cry, right? Because it's a sign of weakness. They think it's a sign of weakness. But I'll tell you, oftentimes I am shedding the things that are holding me back. So I'm in the car crying. I'm in the tub crying, right? I'm just sitting down watching TV and something will trigger me to
Yeah.
cry. But what I realized what was happening, and I talk about this in my book, I was shedding the weight that was holding me hostage. And for each and every one of us, that weight is something different, right? It could be physical weight, it can be emotional, it could be the job, it could be, a situation that happened to us that we're allowing us to prevent ourselves from moving forward. And I like how you say the first thing you did was really, honestly, make a strategic plan for yourself as an individual, right? Organizations have the mission and the vision and the values
Yeah.
and the goals and all the things, right? And as a corporate hero, we're helping them reach their dream while simultaneously our dream becomes smaller, smaller, and smaller, and sometimes non existent. So, by starting to figure out who you are as a person and establishing your mission, your vision, what are your short term goals? What are your long term goals? Doing that SWOT analysis on yourself helps lay the foundation. Now, some of you are like, that's too deep. Well, you know what? I got a solution for you. Taking a break for career dummies will help put you on that journey, because what you need is to see someone who made it on the other side because they lived to tell the story. I'm sorry to hear about your brother, but I suspect that something from that situation triggered you to realize that we only get one life and you need to live that one life, because you never know when you're no longer here or someone that you love is no longer here. So you can't look up and say, whoa, it's 2024. It was just 2020, right? We were just in the thing, the COVID, right? We were just in that stage of our life, and now we're on the other side of it. What are we going to do to reach the goals? Those, I have these dreams and visions of doing things in the future, and when they start to happen, I realize it's because I've planted the seeds. I had a plan in place. Was it easy? No, but I planted the seeds so that when it was time for me to reap the harvest, I was ready. I was ready mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And that's what taking a break can do for you, because
Yeah.
you're not clouded by all these distractors, right? And sometimes they distract you so much you don't even realize they're a distractor. They're just there daily, walking down the street with you, on conference calls with you, and you think all is well, but all is not well.
Yeah. And I want to take it a level higher. So,
Higher, let's
yeah,
go.
let's go higher. Let's go even one level higher. I don't know where exactly. I've not pinpointed the moment this became my reality, but I, for a very long time, have been acutely aware of having one precious life. And I have to say that for a lot of my clients, what you said is exactly true, that it's on the break or when something happens, it crystallizes, right? That like, I've got to make the most of it. And then maybe they want to take a break, or maybe, like the break helps them deal with something hard if the hard thing happens while they're on a break, but it really pushes them to live more true to who they are and what they want. I will say that like I was already on that journey. So what I learned was one level higher, because here's my truth. By following my truth and already operating under that pretense that like this is it, this is not a dress rehearsal, when he died, I fell apart. Like I didn't really want to be alive. I wasn't excited about life anymore. But what I had was $40,000 in my bank account. What I had was a job I had already left on great terms. What I had was a plan for what I could do if I chose to do it over the next few years. And it literally saved my life. And I really believe that life is going to do some really hard crap to you. It's going to deliver amazing gifts, and it's going to take things away that you don't want to leave, and it's going to deliver some devastating blows. And what I have found to be true, and what this moment solidified for me, is that when I'm living in my truth and I'm chasing down my dreams, when those things happen, because they will happen regardless, I am 1000% better prepared and more grateful to be alive because of the journey I am already on. So I want to be standing in the place of a person who's trying to take a break to change her life and give herself what she needs when a really hard, awful thing happens, instead of sitting in my corporate jail cell feeling like I'm not even playing big, I'm not even being true to myself. And now this horrible thing happens, and now I have to figure out how to save money, or I just have to impulsively quit my job because my grief is so overwhelming. I just can't fake it in this place that's stealing a piece of my soul every day. And so it's like there really is no reason not to be moving towards your dreams. You can't always make rapid progress. Like some days, the best you can do is not give up. But are you moving in the right direction, or are you moving further away?
Wow, wow, wow. Heard a speaker recently say, I'm going to drop these gems and see where they land. You just dropped so many gems, so authentic, so transparent in your story. That's what people need, right? We don't need the fake version of Katrina. We need the authentic, this is how I felt, this is what I did, I'm a real person version of the story to help others grow. I remember a time in my life where I decided I didn't want to be here anymore. And it literally took me about 30 years to share that story, because the version of me that I am today, no one would have ever believed that was me, but it was me. And I'm sharing it because I want others to know that if you make it on the other side of the thing, you must help others grow, because you live to tell your story. You live to um, help us figure out what our plans are. And speaking of plans, this book, I feel like this book needs a journal to go with it,
You're the second
because
person that said that to me this week. Maybe that's a sign from the universe.
it is a sign. So here's the reason why you need a journal for this book. Okay,
Yeah, tell
folks, you
me.
need to buy this book. Okay, you need to buy this book because it gives you step by step guidance, and it answers some questions that you probably have circling around your head, but it also gives you that aha moment, like, yeah, I was feeling like this too. And okay, now it's not just me, even though it's not just you, right? It's millions of people in the world, if
Yeah.
they
Oh
want
my
to admit it
gosh.
or not.
Yeah.
But you walk us through start to finish the break, right? You don't just say, like my father, when I was younger, he said, so you quit your job before you had another one, right? So but
Yeah.
in the book, what you're walking us through are the steps, and the steps they're very calculated, right? So you start off, and we're not going to tell them all that's in the book because we need them to read, we need them to buy their own copy of the book. There's no Cliff Notes version. You need the real version. You got a cover of your book. You have a hard copy, because I
I
have a,
do.
let's show us
Yes.
the book. Okay.
Oh,
So look
yeah.
at the picture. The picture on the book is a woman who is free.
Free. That
Free.
was intentional. We went through stock photos and I was like, there needs to be a little nature because she's out connected to like the essentials, but like she's got to look free, at peace, like just really, and the sun. So that was very intentional. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yes, yes. Well, you know what? As a reader, and I know my husband's probably thinking, if another book shows up at this house, he said, are you buying all 52 books? I'm like, yeah, and more, right? Because when I wrote Grow With Me, I didn't realize the impact it was going to have on me, but
Mm.
others. And it is taking me places that I never thought I would go. But you got to be prepared, right? So I'm reading your stories. I'm reading books of other books. I'm rereading right now, believe it or not. I am rereading who moved my cheese,
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah.
Because as a part of navigating a change, you have to, be able to draw upon concepts to help you figure out what the next is going to be, right? Because your cheese can be moved by you or it can be moved by others.
Yeah.
And I'd rather move my own cheese,
Thank
right,
you.
than allow somebody else to move it for me.
Mhm.
So, what's your favorite part of the book? Because you got a lot of chapters, a lot of parts in the book. What's your favorite?
Oh, there's so many good parts. I think there are two I really love. I mean, I love so much about it, but on a higher level, I love the anecdotes. So here's the deal. In the book, I have about 70 anecdotes from over 24 clients and myself. And so my clients were so gracious. We had to get like permission forms signed and all kinds of things. It was honestly kind of a logistical nightmare, but it was so worth it because I don't want someone to read this book and think, oh, Katrina's just a unicorn, or, oh, that sounds good in theory, but what does that actually mean? Or I have no idea what that actually looks like, Katrina. And so I took the time to go back over my several years of coaching and through old emails and client updates to really illustrate the key points with real people examples, people who have kids, people who had debt, people who owned a home, people who had a partner, people whose partners didn't approve of their break, right? Like all these different scenarios that can help you find your story in this book. And it was so extra. I don't know if I knew going into it how extra it was going to be, I would have done it, but I'm so glad I did. It's one of the best, I think, one of the best parts of the book. And one of my other favorite parts is very simple, but it's an analogy. I love analogies. I use them in my coaching because I can make a humorous analogy or a serious analogy kind of illustrate a point where you're like, oh, dang, I get it now. And so one of my analogies is about going to stay at a 5-star resort and not letting yourself use the pool because you're like you've been dreaming about this pool, you've known about this pool, it's like revered in like architectural magazines or something, and you're like, no, I can't go because then I will be depressed for the rest of my life when I go back home and there's no more pool. So you deny it for the whole week of your vacation, and then you get home and all you can think about is the pool. And I use that as an analogy for the break and for honestly just living a better life. People sometimes are scared to step into better because they're like, oh, but what if it's temporary and then I could never go back and settle for crumbs? Good. Don't go back and settle for crumbs. You will get resourceful. You will be so freaking creative when you're motivated to want and expect and to desire more out of your life. But people oftentimes they negate or dismiss the level of resourcefulness, creativity, and just motivation they'll have to do better. And they just deny themselves any pleasure, any change that could be positive for fear that it's only temporary.
Wow. So, I want to tell you something that's interesting.
Okay.
Chapter 12 of my book is called Faith Over Fear. And I concluded the book with that chapter because it was me letting myself know that in order to get to the next place, I had to have faith in myself, in my higher power, and make the change. And it was kind of like I was having an outer body experience because once I wrote the chapter, and let me not say wrote the chapter, I actually recorded the chapter. Like I didn't handwrite it, I didn't type it. And I was crying the entire time that I spoke the words. I was sitting on a balcony on the beaches of Jamaica, one of my happy places. And I happened to be at an event. And when I finished recording, I wiped my face off. It was dark outside. We were kind of like under this tent for an event. And when I sat down, everybody around me was like, you have this glow on your face. I didn't have any makeup on, but I had this glow because I had basically poured out my heart in that chapter and was releasing myself to go ahead and make that change. And that was April 2023. And so here we are in 2024. I made the change because I wrote about it in the book to hold myself accountable for doing it, right? Because I'm like, you put it in the book, you put it out into the cyberspace, right?
Yeah.
You've got to make the change. And I did, but it was so freeing. And that's what I know individuals will experience if they go through the entire book, take notes, because you got to see the anecdotes, right? When you talk my one of my married couples, right, in Spain, chose to hike in
Yeah.
Spain. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, these are real people, right? And then you got some
Yeah.
names and stuff, but it makes it more relatable to the day-to-day person. And there are some women that I've met, they make $400,000 a year and they're miserable, right? I mean, they are pulling up to the job in the nice car, having cried all the way there. And then they take their little makeup palette out, get their face together, have their power suit on, and they go in and tackle the day and then wake up the next day and do it all over again, becoming really shrinking as a person when $400,000, you can take a break, right? You took a break with
Yeah.
$40,000.
Yeah.
So
For 20 months. I mean, for 20 months, I took a break. Yeah, I love that you just describe it so acutely so that I think there are people listening that can relate to that. But it's a perfect example that we have this misunderstanding that money is directly correlated to happiness. If I can just have more achievement, if I can make more money, of course I'll be happy. And when that doesn't work, we just keep doubling down. And then we create a gilded cage because now we're trapped by all the things that we have to continue affording and continue like paying for, right? Because of this expanding income that we've got. And it's like a prison. It's a prison of our own making. And we feel like it's of someone else's making. It's just life prison. Like we just ended up in a life prison. And it's like, no, you actually have a door and you could choose to go through it at any time. Doesn't mean it's always going to be comfortable or feel good, but it leads to the whole wide world, not just the cage. But I love how you just really described that because I think a lot of people experience that and they're doubling down on goals that no longer fit them, that don't feel aligned with what their spirit wants, and that will create nothing but a wasteland of the next 2 decades of great years of their life while they're just grinding it out, hoping to make it to retirement where they can start to like enjoy life.
hmm, that was that old school thought process,
Right.
right? You
Yep.
work and then you retired. But what happens when you retired? You're probably old. You probably got some ailments making it difficult to do the things. So traveling now is key. I just recently read a book called The Psychology of Money. I don't know if you read that
I
book.
have not.
But it's a great book because it actually illustrates exactly what you just spoke about. Like you make all this money and you think you're happier, but when you really peel back the layers, you realize that you're not happy. You just have money.
Just that money. I honestly feel more free as an entrepreneur and I make sometimes very little. Sometimes I have great months. It's so unsteady, but I feel free. I have choices. I feel empowered. And quite honestly, if it all fell apart tomorrow, these last 7 years, I'm so glad I got to know what life felt like on this side of the fence. I would never wish that away. And I spent such great years. Like I'm 44. I spent such quality years when I had the energy and I had the time and I had the health going after my dreams, traveling the world, living like a nomad, but also just helping people do really cool stuff and writing a book that could potentially change someone's life. And I do not regret that one bit.
Oh, you are changing lives. So listen, we got to get this journal, right? We have to get this
Yeah.
journal. And I'm not sure what else you are doing, but what else are you doing? Because we want our listening viewing audience. I know you're coaching, but are you speaking on large stages? You must speak on large stages. You
I know.
have to go in with a cage, walk in where you bust out of this
No,
cage, right?
I
You bust
like
out of this
this.
cage and you are setting people free because they need it. They need to see someone that's done it. You're going to have pictures of you traveling the world, right? I'm teeing you up for the
I love
next.
this. I am here for it. You are brilliant. I am loving this. Yeah. So I've been stepping on a few stages in the last year, and I'm actually going to be doing a career expo for a big women in business, women in corporate foundation. So I'm really excited for that. That's coming up. But I was just on live TV for the first time. I did three-day segments. It was so nerve-wracking, so beyond my comfort zone, but I practiced what I preach. I survived it. It was good. But yeah, that was like, I'm just stepping outside of my comfort zone to be more visible and to show up in other spaces.
I love it. So listen, our time is up, but please tell our listening, viewing audience where they can find the book, where they can find you. We're going to have it on the screen when your episode airs, but I want them to hear you say it because I want them to be typing and Googling and all those things.
Yeah, you can find the book at thecareerbreakbook.com. You can also find it on Amazon where almost all books live, but you can go to thecareerbreakbook.com and find it there. And if you want to follow me and get goodies and know about things like when I show up on TV or when I'm coming through town and signing books, you can download my freebie, which is 45 epic things to do on a career break. It's a list of 45 of the coolest things my clients have done on break, some with kids, some without, some with partners, some travel, some don't, some stay at home. It's just a really cool list. And so if you download that list, you'll get to see those things, but you'll also be on my newsletter. And so you'll get emailed about once a week and you'll know all the things I'm doing and when and where I can sign this book of yours. So
I love it. Well, it has been such a pleasure meeting you, reading your book. I said I need a year, right? So I'm doing 52 books, 52 books, 52 authors, 52 weeks, right? 52.
yeah.
And it was a vision that I had, and I just put the call out there. You and other authors have answered the call, and it is confirmation for me that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I'm so blessed to be on this journey with you. And I really next year I'm thinking I got to do a "Where Are They Now?" segment, but
Yeah, that'd be
also
cool.
bring on folks that have read the book as a result of this episode and what impact it's had on them. So, I think I just,
That is brilliant. I would listen to all 52 episodes of that. I think the stories, the before and afters are always like it's like candy for me. I will eat that up anytime. I just get so inspired by other people's journeys.
I do too. Well, thank you so much for being here today. This has been another episode of 52 Weeks, 52 Authors. I'm Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator, where I help individuals and organizations shed the weight that is holding them hostage. Bye bye now.